Up is Senator McCarthy.
And thank you, Minister, for being here today, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to raise this matter, and I thank you for coming in here. Firstly, let me just briefly explain the technology, because when the Cathaoirleach was introducing tokenisation into the record, he was saying tokenism, and they're radically different. So I'm conscious for myself, getting my head around it was difficult. So tokenisation is the converting of a real-world asset into a digital token on a blockchain, so such as a share or an investment fund, and then it's registered as a digital token on a distributed ledger. So for those that are watching at home, perhaps you think of it like this: instead of being your ownership of shares being recorded on a paper register or a centralized database somewhere, it's encoded as a secure digital record, and that can be transferred, that can be verified and settled almost instantly at any hour across the world, across any border. So what it does is it removes layers of manual processing, and it dramatically reduces costs, and it can open investment funds to a far wider range of investors. So, Minister, we have spent years watching Ireland compete and win in a global context regarding financial services. And for 4 decades, the funds and asset management industry has been one of the great success stories of the Irish economy. And I mean, even the IFSC, when I was much younger, that was something that really stood out. So today it sustains over 20,000 jobs, and nearly half of them are outside Dublin and towns and counties that depend on this vital sector. So it contributes over €1 billion annually to the Irish exchequer. The fund industry itself is undergoing a rapid digital transformation, and tokenisation is no longer a future prospect. It's already happening. Luxembourg has updated its legislation to accommodate tokenised funds. The United Kingdom is moving with purpose regarding financial services and the Markets Act reforms, and then Singapore has been ahead of the curve for years. So these are our direct competitors for the same global mandates, the same asset managers, the same jobs. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is Ireland doing in this context? The industry has been making submissions to the Department of Finance since last year, and they've set out very specific, targeted changes in legislation that would be required, changes to the ICAV Act, updates to company law, and something as straightforward as allowing registers of fund members to be held on a distributed ledger. So these submissions have been received, but to date, Minister, there has been no commitment to act and no timeline offered. So the case being made by the Irish funds, by the industry itself, is asking for a political commitment to bring forward the necessary amendments to the laws, to our laws in Ireland, that allow this to happen. So, Minister, imagine an Ireland where the next generation of global tokenised funds are structured and domiciled here. So where the jobs in digital assets and blockchain infrastructure, in the operational legal ecosystem around tokenised finance, they're Irish jobs. And then the taxes, of course, would then flow into the Irish exchequer. And a graduate from, whether it's Trinity College, University of Limerick, University of Cork, they can build a career at the frontier of financial technology without ever leaving the country. So I look forward to your response, Minister. I think it's something that actually we can be very strong on in Ireland, and I hope that we can work together across the House to move this forward. And
You didn't even use all your time.
Unusually. Thank you, Cathaoirleach, and certainly us politicians can quite often be accused of tokenism, but we're very conscious we're not talking about that today. We're talking about tokenisation, and I want to thank the Deputy for raising this important and indeed topical issue, given that Ireland is both a large funds domicile and home to significant financial services and technology sectors. There would be obvious synergies that should allow us to keep pace with these technological advances. We are closely monitoring developments across the EU and globally, and will continue to engage with industry and the central bank to ensure we can remain competitive as a jurisdiction, but to do so while upholding our high regulatory standards, and I think that's very important. Tokenisation could fundamentally reform how capital markets operate, as the Senator outlined. They have potential in enabling real-time trades, increasing transparency and liquidity, expediting clearing, and ultimately providing for simultaneous settlement. The Fund Sector 2030 report included a recommendation that industry should continue to engage with the Central Bank of Ireland and the Department of Finance as necessary, with a view to mapping out a pathway for adoption of tokenisation. The Department fully supports and encourages the work that the industry has undertaken to assess what can be done within the current legislative and regulatory frameworks. Officials from my department are considering submissions from industry regarding proposed change to the current legislative framework. In Europe, the regulatory landscape for digital assets is still evolving, both at national and EU levels. Whether an investment fund is permitted to distribute digitally depends on European and national rules. Some countries, such as Germany and Luxembourg, have started pilot work on implementing tokenisation, as the Senator alluded to. As part of the Savings and Investment Union strategy, the European Commission has published a market integration and supervision package. This package will amend 18 pieces of existing EU financial services legislation across trading, clearing, settlement and asset management, and it will be a central focus for Ireland during our presidency. Amending the distributed ledger technology framework, among other related measures, form part of MISP proposal, which seeks to turn the use of DLT into capital markets from a limited sandbox into something that can be scaled across the single market. The DLT pilot programme is being amended so that tokenised securities can be issued, traded and settled at meaningful scale. Other changes amend existing EU financial services legislation, making them technologically neutral, allowing for the use of DLT and other technologies. This proposal is currently under negotiation at EU level. In March this year, the Central Bank published a discussion paper on tokenisation. This discussion paper is to encourage informed debate on how distributed ledger technology and tokenisation could shape the future of financial services in Ireland. The paper seeks input from a wide range of stakeholders to explore the impacts of technology, understand how its benefits can be realised and identify how risks should be managed. Submissions on the discussion paper were invited by the Central Bank with the deadline earlier this month. The Central Bank intends to publish a feedback statement following the consultation period. My officials will continue to engage closely with the Central Bank on the matter, and the outworkings of the feedback received on their discussion paper will inform the Department's next steps on the important policy matter. It is also worth noting, at the end of May, I convened a roundtable with some of the leading thinkers in digital assets and blockchain technology to better understand the opportunities and indeed the challenges for the sector. There is great industry ambition in this regard, and I am confident we will match that ambition with the forthcoming launch of the Ireland for Finance strategy. I intend that strategy to have a dedicated focus on digital assets so that we can realise the opportunities that are in front of us. We understand that strategic risks of inaction might be significant. However, it is crucial to note that regulatory framework for tokenised assets require extensive consideration for issues like data protection, anti-money laundering, tax, beneficial ownership, insolvency or enforcement scenarios or property rights. We are closely monitoring developments in other countries to ensure we remain competitive, but importantly, uploading our requirement for strict regulation.
Thanks, Minister.
Thank you, Minister, and I do welcome the engagement, and I want to be constructive here. So I think what your statement does say is we understand the strategic risks of inaction, and they might be significant, while we're also waiting on the Central Bank to come back with what their findings are, and we're also looking at other countries. And I don't think the industry is asking for a whole lot here. They're looking for specific amendments to existing legislation regarding the ICAV Act, the company law, and practical changes that will signal clearly to global firms that Ireland is ready to play a huge part in the next chapter. So when you're looking at countries that are already doing this, I've mentioned Luxembourg, I've mentioned Singapore and the UK, and certainly they're not waiting. But I understand that you have to be careful, and I understand GDPR, money laundering, etc. So I would ask you, Minister, just to go away with one question today, and that is, can we commit to the amendments in this year's finance bill? Thank you. Go ahead, Margaret.
Sir.
I thank the Senator for, I suppose, raising what is a very important and topical issue here today. I'm not going to give a commitment to amendments in the forthcoming finance bill, but I think I've been very fair in what I've outlined in terms of the work that has been done to date by the department, by officials in my department, by the Central Bank, engaging with industry. We acknowledge the huge opportunities that this presents, and we want to capitalise on that. And that's why I have confirmed here publicly today that there will be a section within the Ireland for Finance strategy. That strategy is what outlines our priorities from a financial services perspective from this year right out to 2030. And a key component of that will be tokenisation. So I'm not going to publish the part of the strategy in the Seanad here today. I do intend to publish the Seanad in the next number of weeks, and I don't think there'll be any doubt in terms of our commitment for tokenisation once that's published. And I want to thank you for raising it, but also for the industry who has engaged very fully with me, as I said most recently in a round table only a number of weeks ago, but also ongoing with officials in my department to ensure we're acutely aware of the opportunities that are presented to us.
Thanks, Mill.